please?
Of course. So Conn Artists is the professional associate company of the Connaught Theatre in Worthing, and we were founded in 2013 out of a passionate desire to tour quality live theatre out into the regions, and that can consist of art centres as well as mid-scale regional theatres, and more recently village halls on the rural touring circuit. And the production that we've done recently last autumn was ideal for that. It was a two-hander play called A Perfect Likeness, which was actually written by an American playwright, a founder member of the Reduced Shakespeare Company, and he was writing a play about two of England's most iconic literary figures from the 19th century, Charles Dickens and Lewis Carroll. So the play is all about a fictitious meeting between the two. Charles Dodson, aka Lewis Carroll, is actually a keen amateur photographer and was actually a mathematics lecturer at Christ Church College, Oxford. And he's a huge fan of Charles Dickens. So he invites him to come and have his portrait taken at his college rooms at Christ Church. And with the invitation, he sends him a copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which Dickens reads and is so sort of intrigued by that he accepts the invitation. And so what follows is, in this meeting between the two men, is a really revealing conversation about both of their lives and their inspirations for their work. But it's like an odd couple encounter, because Charles Dickens is, very much big and brash and, the celebrity author of the day. And Charles Dodson, Lewis Carroll, is an introvert, very private man. So of course that sparks off the comedy, which is why it's such a funny play as well as being quite moving. Well, I'm so pleased the opportunity came along, because actually back in 2017 we were touring a play called The Four Men, which is an adaptation of Hilaire Belloc's book, and that's all about Sussex, the Sussex countryside and Sussex legends and the South Downs. And I said to my creative team at the time, wouldn't it be lovely to be touring this rurally, to village halls? But that didn't happen then. So it was strange how this one came about, because I was promoting A Perfect Likeness to loads of venue programmers, and somebody that I know who used to work at Worthing Theatres with me sort of had seen our work, was very familiar with our work, and mentioned to the programmer at Applause that the scale of our work would be ideal for this, and that I was interested in doing rural touring with the company. So I think it really fits Conn Artists' mission, which is taking out quality work to as many communities as possible. And so that, should include village and rural communities, as well as, touring to places like Coventry or Manchester. Well, obviously the technical side is quite a consideration. Thankfully, our set designer usually works on a minimalistic set design, which suits our style. So that's sort of easier to adapt in different size spaces. But the lighting rigs and sound, one of the village halls we went to had no lights or sound at all. So we had to bring everything, which was fine. But we had to, build a rig for the lights. So we had to allow more time to do that. But our production and technical manager was very clever, because he kind of did site visits at the halls before we went on the actual day to perform. And I think that was invaluable in getting prepared from a technical side. So that's one of the biggest differences. But then I think the audiences as well is a big difference, because most of the audience knows each other, which is wonderful, because you really get that sense of intimacy with that community. Whereas when you're touring to other theatres, it's a whole mixture of people from different, areas and backgrounds that are coming to see the play. So sometimes you can get quite a cold audience in a larger venue, and it takes time to warm them up. But in the village halls, they were very, very warm and friendly to begin with, so it actually made the actor's job a lot easier. Obviously, when we tour to theatres, you know, we'll have 2 in-house technicians available to us, a full front of house team and box office and stuff, which is fine. And of course, with the village hall circuit, you do see the host and you're welcomed by various volunteers, but you're pretty much on your own in terms of the setup and the getting out. So it's a consideration, and it's another thing that's different, but as long as you're prepared for it. But it's also being flexible about what spaces you might be allocated, say, for dressing rooms, because the Shoreham Village Hall in Kent, I think it was that one, or was it Stedham? No, sorry, it was Stedham. We had a corridor as our backstage area, because the other ante-room in the hall they wanted to use for the show bar, which was absolutely understandable because the audience need to go somewhere in the interval.
Yeah.
So David and I were absolutely fine about it. So, right, how do we make this our dressing room? How do we make it nice and cozy? We'll get a mirror, we'll move that chair, we'll do this, we'll do that. And thankfully, because the play, you know, once you're on stage for the duration, you know, it's fine. There's no hanging around in the corridor, but it's making fun, having fun adapting to the spaces, I think. Audiences, yeah, I think the audiences were surprised how much set we brought with us, and yet we didn't consider it to be a big set. It really did come across that they were really pleased that we were there, bringing this work to them. And in a way, it made the acting for myself and David so much easier. A, we didn't have to project as much because it was in a smaller space. B, you've got an audience that are really grateful that you're there and are really keen to see this exciting work. And so suddenly it becomes really intimate. And therefore the comedy got better because we were able to do things so subtly with just a look or a glance, you know, or a slight turn. You know, and you felt like you had the audience in the palm of your hand, but it was a lovely kind of shared experience because we were feeding off the warmth of the audience, you know, and so it made us perform better. So it was great. David and I had an absolute whale of a time, you know, performing the show to them. And then, of course, the other thing that you get is at the end, you see the audience and they come up to you and talk to you and say, "Oh, I loved that." And one of them said, I think it was the host's husband, said, "Oh, that's as good as anything I've seen at Chichester Festival Theatre." You know, and I thought, well, that's a good compliment because it shows the quality of the work that Applause is booking to, you know, make available to these rural venues. You know, so that was really nice, and you know, and you get other direct feedback that you wouldn't normally get when you're in a normal theatre. You know, because the audience goes out a different door. I think the people, I mean, without an audience, without people, you don't have, you know, a reason to perform. So I think, you know, I think that welcoming aspect, that community feel was wonderful. And I think the challenges it presented to us as a company was also quite fun to adapt. And, you know, we're that sort of company that embraces challenges. You know, we don't necessarily always want an easy life, you know, because actually by facing the challenges, your work gets better, you know, and becomes more accessible. And that's really what Conn Artists is all about, you know, so continuous improvement.